Good evening. My name is Darren and I'm extremely proud to represent HMP Rye Hill from Warwickshire, England in the United Kingdom at this conference. I lead the Further and Higher Education Campus, which is an organisation run by incarcerated scholars for their peers, known as a Prisoner-Led Initiative, or PLI for short. You'll hear first of all from Nathan, who set up the PLI in late 2022 as we emerged from the SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 pandemic and led it until, as you'll hear, he moved to open conditions a few weeks ago. To say that Nathan's achievements in setting up the PLI are monumental does not begin to do them justice. After Nathan's introduction, I want to outline a fundamental paradox of prison education and describe how the Rye Hill student community model rebalances that situation. Then I'll give my first-hand perspective as a very active participant in the learner community and more recently as the new lead of the PLI during a time of great change and opportunity. I will also provide some personal insights which I hope will be valuable. So, without further ado, I hand over to Nathan.
Rye Hill is a closed prison in England housing around 650 men. You will learn lots about the campus and hear from various people involved in its work throughout this presentation. But in summary, we are a peer-led initiative that aims to bridge the gap between university and prison. I'm introducing this video presentation as I'm due to move onto open conditions before the date of this conference. But as founder of the campus and one of its most passionate supporters, I jumped at the opportunity to highlight its work to an international audience. So a little about my journey, then on to the campus. I was sentenced in 2018, and since then higher education study has got me through my sentence. In 2021 I graduated with a Bachelor of Science First Class, then in 2023 with a postgraduate diploma in Systems Thinking with distinction. By the time you hear this presentation, I would also have completed the MA Crime and Justice, all through the UK's Open University. My plan is to study for a PhD with my research proposal titled Exploring the Impacts of Creating a Learning Community for Prison-Based Further and Higher Education Students through Informal Education Activities. Once I had completed my undergraduate studies, I knew how powerful higher education was for me, but I felt that the HE provision in prison was missing out on so much of what makes university, well, university. The meeting of like-minded people, joining clubs and societies, debates, seminars, all that informal learning and support you get from living on campus was missing. So I approached Rye Hill's head of activities at the time with a proposal, and the Further and Higher Education Campus was born. So what is the Further and Higher Education Campus? Well, as mentioned before, we're a peer-led initiative, so that means prisoner-run, that aims to bridge the gap between university and prison. And we do this by focusing on 6 key priorities. The first of these priorities is to support education delivery at all levels. Our events and activities are aimed at further and higher education students but are open to all. In fact, many of our event regulars are people that you just would not expect to be attending something like a Model UN, for example. Every weekday, Rye Hill's director delivers the daily vlog, filmed in our media hub and broadcast on one of Rye Hill's 2 TV channels available in every cell. Often, post-event, I would invite an event attendee to talk about their experience on the vlog with the director. And I know he's always happy to be surprised when someone who he would usually be discussing their time down the block with starts talking about the complexities of the geopolitical situation in Sudan or the challenge set by the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. The evidence that education is transformative, from the likes of Anne Pike and David Honeywell, who spoke at one of our TEDx events, for example, is compelling. Dufour and others talk about the importance of hooks for change. Education is just such a hook, and I believe that our events have and will continue to expose those that would not normally engage with education to the benefits and joys of the holistic educational experience that comes with higher level learning. Our second priority is to promote a sense of community amongst the further and higher education student group. Whilst we had over 200 different prisoners attend our events last year, many of our further and higher education students regularly attend, so it begins to feel like a community of learners. We always build in opportunities for our students to engage with each other during our enrichment events. We are always looking for new ways to provide opportunity for our students to work collaboratively and to build that sense of community, such as introducing weekly study support coffee mornings, where prisoner students meet in the staff canteen to discuss their studies, a sense of normality created by allowing participants to purchase items from the staff canteen using a voucher system. In talking about the transformative power of higher level learning, distance learning in prison, Anne Pike of the Open University and Susan Hopkins highlight the importance of what they term learn in prisons. This is an establishment with especially good support with physical, infrastructural and organisational structures which enable the learning process. Novus, Rye Hill's education supplier, through the distance learning facilitator and orderly, our virtual campus IT facilities and contracts with Coracle laptops, and our links with a range of providers of higher level distance learning cover many of the elements needed to support the formal learning process. But where the further and higher education campus really adds value is in the creation of informal learning opportunities through our schedule of events that include seminars delivered by partnering universities, TEDx talks, Model UN, and the World Climate Negotiations Simulation, or Model COP. This mix of formal and informal learning is what I believe makes Rye Hill a more holistic learning prison. Our third priority is to provide opportunities for community engagement with the wider further and higher education sector. In the first 6 months of 2024, the Further and Higher Education campus welcomed over 90 visiting academics and students to Rye Hill through our schedule of seminars and educational events. McNeill describes 4 interconnected dimensions of rehabilitation: personal, social, judicial, and moral and political. Personal relates to the transformation to a new social identity, while social refers to the need for a positive and expanded network to support the development of social capital. Our events in general, and the engagement with our partnering universities in particular, supports the personal and social dimensions of rehabilitation. There is strong evidence that a move to a positive social identity and improved social capital supports desistance. I believe there is no better way to support the move to a student academic identity than engaging with students and staff from the wider higher education community. McNeill also talks about the importance of tertiary desistance, which he describes as a sense of belonging to a moral community. I believe that Rye Hill students can gain that sense of belonging through the learning community that the Further and Higher Education campus has developed. Our fourth priority is to provide employment opportunities for prisoners with an interest in further and higher education. My role, for example, is the Strategic Participatory Action Research Coordinator, and that of several others exists purely to support Rye Hill's distance learning community, whilst giving us a sense of purpose. Priority number 5 is to make use of the skills gained through further and higher education study. For example, whilst part of my role is to lead the Further and Higher Education campus, I also design and undertake research projects for the prison. Skills that I have developed through the further and higher education that I've received within prison. Priority number 6 is to give a sense of purpose and hope through the transformative power of further and higher education. You will hear from others about how the Further and Higher Education campus provides a sense of purpose and hope. So rather than outline the evidence base, I thought I would reflect on my journey and how it links to these concepts. When I left the Royal Air Force, I struggled with a return to civilian life. I was initially diagnosed with acute stress reaction and later with moral injury due to my experiences in Afghanistan. When I entered prison in 2018, my initial assessment said I was socially inept and lacked confidence and self-esteem. Although the way I was feeling, my lack of confidence and my poor mental health did not excuse the actions that led to me being in prison. They were part of how or why I ended up here. Fast forward 6 years and I am emotionally and mentally stronger. I am confident, and I doubt anyone who knows me now would say I suffer from self-esteem issues. But a big part of that change is my educational journey. Along with my academic achievements, I am also extremely proud of the work I've done with the Further and Higher Education Campus. Prison has seen some of my worst days, but my graduation day, held at Rye Hill, was one of my best days. Seeing the pride in my parents' faces, hearing the good things that were being said about my achievements, well, they all gave me hope for the future, and that, in prison, is a valuable commodity. The evidence that participating in further and higher education studies within prison has rehabilitative benefits is compelling. Many studies identify reduced recidivism and improved post-release employment rates as the key benefits of higher level study. However, I argue that the creation of a positive student-graduate social identity, increased social capital, exposure to positive social networks, and the promotion of informed citizenship are the benefits of higher education study that lead to more hopeful and optimistic prisoner students, and which have the greatest impact upon distance journeys. The evidence we have collected so far seems to suggest that the Further and Higher Education Campus and its focus on the importance of the informal is making a positive difference. I hope that we can inspire others through this presentation to do the same in other places where higher education students experience a social distance from the typical university experience.
Nathan has provided a vivid and personal account of his experience and the profound impact of education on the course of his life, and I will also describe a little bit of my own journey, because it will give the international audience a flavour of the UK penal system, provide some context, and will most importantly highlight some of the crucial environmental factors that promote a positive learning experience in prison. However, I will first outline what I believe is the paradox of an incarcerated scholarship, something that Rod Earl introduced in his 2011 paper, Prison and University, A Tale of Two Institutions, and some testable solutions that can, and perhaps should, be tried across the prison estate. The paradox can be reframed as a pull-me, push-you paradigm, where a student is subject to conflicting forces. We can start by asking, what does university study represent? For many, it's the first taste of freedom, breaking the shackles of the classroom, mandatory attendance and the oversight of teachers and possibly parents also. It represents a chance for social mobility, what's colloquially known as moving up in the world, enhanced social networks and hopefully increased earning potential. It represents increased responsibility, often the first time living and budgeting independently, or more realistically, managing debt. It opens up the possibility of new friendship groups, independence of thought, new thinking skills, development of political views and habits. It's an opportunity to develop social capital that will yield regular dividend for the rest of your life. This is an intrinsic part of the university experience. Yet the nature of prison is the very antithesis of many of these positive aspects of university education. Prison represents the loss of freedom and independence, the erosion of social capital and increased supervision. One's social networks and friendship groups are limited to those we share a landing with, and, particularly in the case of sex offenders, entail a criminal record and stigma that may severely circumscribe earning potential. Nathan has provided a vivid and personal account of his experience. Many of these problems are intractable, and we can add to the list the lack of digital access for prisoners in a digital world. But I argue that much can be done to counteract these problems, and believe that HMP Rye Hill offers a template for this in the form of its further and higher education campus. An example of this is that each further and higher education student, automatically enrolled, is given an open invitation to a weekly gathering for the whole morning. Once a month, a visiting lecturer from a nearby university will attend that group and deliver a lecture. These can cover a wide range of themes from study skills to environmental crime to selfhood to conspiracy theories and so on. We have a unique partnership with Coventry University and Arden University, who both have an outreach element to their activity. While these are not related to a syllabus or course of study that most students are following, they do add significant value. They're a chance to attend a lecture, not afforded to most incarcerated students, and a chance to learn academic etiquette through face-to-face contact with an academic, which again is usually denied to most incarcerated scholars. In evaluating these sessions, members of the campus rate the sessions low, 37%, in terms of academic value, though this is not the case for the small amount of criminology students, but very high in terms of overall satisfaction and other metrics, 97% and above. These sessions are prisoner-led when an external lecturer is not in attendance, and vary in terms of content. There have been media-enhanced moral philosophy discussions, TED Talks, or forums on developing the PLI. Very recently, a workshop was held so that members could directly and democratically engage in the constitution of the PLI. A sense of agency and control over their environment which is quite unusual. Sometimes students just gather as they would in a library or coffee shop or students' union, have a coffee or breakfast that they can purchase. During these informal gatherings, ideas are shared, study skills, suggestions are shared, and students effectively form new friendships. The campus runs a wider suite of events in addition. Our TEDx events include a mix of external speakers, including university undergraduates from Coventry and Arden. That was for many a first in researching and presenting to a large audience in a reasoned and evidence-based way. They're an opportunity to shape perceptions of the self as well as the prison, develop social skills and capital, and for some a safe acid test of a persona or identity that they might be revealing for the first time. It's a rare example of autonomy in prison. TEDx volunteer is wholly responsible for their success, commitment to research, planning, delivery, and leaving a comfort zone in the distance. For some, it's a truly transformative experience. We also hold United Nations simulations. These have taken the form of UN Conference of Parties simulations and UN Security Council simulations themed around real-world events. These take place in a safe and controlled environment where good and bad reputations are left at the door. There's a need to follow procedure, voice opinion constructively, and use collaborative, non-violent approaches to solve complex global issues and disagreements. This is not in your mainstream list of prison activities, perhaps. People walk away from these events with different perspectives. This package of activities has served to create interwing cross-estate learner community that's thriving, with many examples of peer support arriving from the community. And in 2024 to date, we've delivered 80 hours of content, attended by 185 unique prisoners, about 28% of the community, and nearly 3,000 hours of purposeful activity altogether. I'd like to talk a little bit about recent developments in the campus and what benefits this will bring. These are times of change, catalysed by an expansion that means the prison is effectively doubling in size. In consequence, the FNHE community is growing in number every week as existing students transfer in from prisons across the country. A new director has been appointed, along with a new deputy director, and the prison now has a dedicated prisoner-run education TV channel. As we grow, the need to support students grows. A reporting mechanism as part of a suite of new KPIs has been established to promote reflective learning, which also acts as an early warning system that a student may be struggling with their studies. This triggers a visit and the offer of support, which comes in many guises. Our KPIs measure how quickly and successfully we respond. We will work with Coventry University going forward to enhance and improve this, also enshrined in our constitution. We also have simplified our mission statement to use the power of education to build a better future in prison and beyond. The prison authorities have responded to our potential to increase numbers by giving us a dedicated space for learners with 10 bookable computers and advice and guidance present at all times. We will run transition workshops delivered in functional skills classrooms that aim to inspire people to consider higher education. We will use inspirational stories from the current user population to do this. I'd like to turn to my experience, which will serve to vivify the prison experience and contextualise some benefits of the campus. I originally graduated in 1994 with a degree in applied linguistics and English, and long wanted to engage in further study. Faced with the shock of a 7-year sentence, I started my BSc in STEM in 2020. I was under no illusion that having studied through a traditional route, that this studying through the Open University in prison was going to be a very different experience. It's typical in the UK that on initial remand you're kept in a local prison, and if you're a short-term prisoner, you may see out your sentence there. Long-term prisoners will be moved to a prison appropriate to their category, which could be anywhere in the country. Whilst on remand, which lasted for several months, I had to wait in a local prison awaiting sentencing. This was during a pandemic that profoundly affected the capacity of already stretched institutions to function correctly. When admitted to my local prison, I had no induction, was not allowed a phone call, and for nearly 3 weeks was placed in a condemned cell on the mains unit. I had no phone and no chair. I received food quite irregularly, spent fewer than 10 minutes a day outside my cell, did not go outside into the fresh air for a single moment. The only one thing I could do is study. Having realised I was likely to face a custodial sentence, I'd already enrolled for my degree, so when it came to entering a guilty plea, my course books had accompanied me into the dock and then on the bus to my new home. It's no hyperbole when I say that studying during this time was my solace and comfort, and a tiny representation of the thing that was most needed, which is hope. At the time, I felt this was the only thing that would save me from penal atrophy. I got my first lucky break when a probation officer took interest in my course books, and he arranged a visit from the prison's distance learning coordinator, a saintly volunteer who turned up with a gift of a chair, got me moved to a cell which was fit to contain a human, and crucially sent off the assignment which had fallen overdue. His weekly visits, delivering A4 pads, were the highlight of the week. This is a timely opportunity to a key organisational factor in the prison context. That's the role of the distance learning coordinator. If there's a basic hierarchy of needs for the incarcerated student, then the base of the pyramid includes a liaison with the education provider and the prison's education department, including arranging and sitting in our tutorials, handling assignments, and handling the labyrinthine administration that signing up for a module entails. Furthermore, I expect that failure and dropout rates will increase if this role does not exist. One of the reasons for this is it helps alleviate what I call the loneliness of the long-distance learner. Together with an experienced peer mentor who sees every learner in a month and offers face-to-face study support, The coordinator at Rye Hill maintains a very direct and regular contact with learners. Staff are required to organise and attend all of the events talked about above, and the coordinator's responsibilities facilitate this and deliver all of the benefits referred to above. Context is important, and it should not be pretended that the model outlined above will work everywhere. It will work best in an environment that's safe, decent and fair. This is something that's measured and monitored at Rye Hill via a monthly quality of life survey, and the most recent survey showed an average score across a prison for the statement "I feel safe here" to be 4.21 out of 5, reflecting an environment and culture in which initiatives like the Further and Higher Campus can succeed.